Adrian, I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend. Noah blinked, certain he had misheard him. What? The word barely left his mouth before everything seemed to freeze. The elegant chandelier above them shimmered over hundreds of perfectly dressed guests. A string quartet continued playing as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Across the ballroom, several members of the Sterling family were already watching them with quiet curiosity, waiting for Noah's answer. Adrian's calm blue eyes never wavered. He looked completely serious. Noah opened his mouth again, but before another word could escape, everything faded. 3 days earlier, living with Adrian Sterling was like sharing an apartment with someone who belonged in a magazine instead of real life. Noah Bennett had answered an online listing 6 months ago because the rent was unbelievably affordable for downtown Chicago. He had assumed the owner was desperate to split expenses. Instead, he discovered his new roommate was a quiet, impeccably dressed man who left every morning before sunrise, returned well after dark, and somehow managed to make a simple gray sweater look more expensive than Noah's entire wardrobe. Adrian rarely talked about work. Noah assumed he was some kind of corporate consultant because he was always carrying a leather briefcase and answering short phone calls that sounded more like business negotiations than conversations. Despite his polished appearance, Adrian was surprisingly considerate. He never complained when Noah accidentally left sketchbooks scattered across the coffee table. He quietly replaced groceries whenever Noah forgot to buy milk. Every Sunday morning, Noah would wake up to fresh coffee already brewed, though Adrian never admitted making it. Their friendship developed through little routines instead of dramatic moments. Noah designed promotional graphics for local businesses while freelancing from home. Adrian often worked late in the dining room with his laptop open, both of them sharing comfortable silence broken only by keyboard clicks and the occasional sarcastic comment about Chicago traffic or unpredictable weather. Noah liked that silence. It felt honest. One rainy Tuesday evening, Noah returned carrying 2 bags of takeout balanced awkwardly against his chest. As he nudged the apartment door open with his shoulder, he nearly collided with Adrian, who was standing unusually still in the hallway, staring at his phone. Whoa, Noah laughed. Either I have terrible timing, or you're practicing becoming a statue. Adrian slipped the phone into his pocket a second too quickly. Sorry. Noah narrowed his eyes playfully. Everything okay? Adrian hesitated just long enough for Noah to notice. Then he gave the same polite smile he always used whenever anyone asked about his personal life. Just work. Noah accepted the answer even though it sounded rehearsed. During dinner, Adrian barely touched his food. Instead, his attention drifted repeatedly toward messages lighting up his phone screen. Noah tried lightening the mood by joking about a nightmare client who insisted their company logo needed more enthusiasm. Adrian actually smiled, a genuine one this time, and Noah silently celebrated the small victory. It wasn't until later that night that Noah noticed something strange. Adrian had accidentally left a black envelope on the kitchen island. Noah had no intention of snooping, but the elegant silver lettering caught his eye before he could look away. Sterling Grand Hotel's annual Legacy Gala. His eyebrows lifted. Sterling, the same last name Adrian carried. Before curiosity could tempt him further, Adrian quietly appeared behind him, picked up the envelope, and tucked it beneath his arm. Family event, he said simply. Noah scratched the back of his neck. Sounds fancy. Adrian gave a faint nod, but instead of walking away, he remained standing there as if debating something far more important than a formal invitation. For the first time since becoming roommates, Noah saw uncertainty flicker across the composed expression Adrian always wore so effortlessly, and somehow, that brief crack in the armor made him seem more human than ever. Noah Bennett had never imagined that sharing an apartment with a stranger would become the most stable part of his life. At 26, stability meant more to him than comfort. His freelance graphic design projects paid enough to cover groceries if clients actually paid on time. But some months he survived on instant noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and determination. He had grown up believing that hard work eventually opened every door, even if those doors seemed permanently locked. Every morning, he carried his aging laptop to a neighborhood coffee shop, where he spent hours designing restaurant menus, social media advertisements, and logos for small businesses that could not afford expensive agencies. Every dollar mattered. Every invoice mattered. Every opportunity mattered. The affordable room in Adrian's apartment had been nothing short of a miracle. Noah still wondered why someone with such a beautiful downtown apartment charged rent that was lower than apartments half the size. Whenever he tried thanking Adrian, his roommate always dismissed it with the same calm answer. The extra room was empty anyway. Adrian Sterling remained one of the biggest mysteries Noah had ever met. Everything about him seemed ordinary until Noah looked a little closer. His clothes were always simple in color but tailored so perfectly they fit, as though they had been made for him by hand. His shoes never showed signs of wear despite Chicago's sidewalks being unforgiving during every season. One morning, while pouring coffee, Noah noticed Adrian fastening a silver watch onto his wrist. It caught the morning sunlight for only a second before disappearing beneath his shirt cuff. But Noah had seen enough luxury advertisements online to recognize that it was probably worth more than his entire annual income. Adrian noticed him looking and casually pulled his sleeve down without saying a word. Noah laughed awkwardly. "Nice watch." Adrian glanced down briefly. It was a gift. The answer sounded true, but somehow incomplete. Other little details kept piling up. Black luxury cars occasionally stopped outside the apartment building before sunrise. Adrian always thanked the drivers, but never allowed them to carry his briefcase upstairs. Expensive garment bags appeared before business trips and disappeared again when he returned. Once, Noah accidentally opened the wrong closet while searching for a vacuum cleaner and found several impeccably pressed suits hanging inside, each protected by custom garment covers with discreet embroidered initials. They looked like something executives wore in magazine interviews rather than ordinary office meetings. Big presentation? Noah joked that evening when Adrian selected one of the charcoal suits. Adrian adjusted his cufflinks in the hallway mirror. Something like that. "You must have the most important mystery job in Chicago." Adrian smiled faintly without denying it. "Maybe it only seems mysterious because I do not talk about work." Noah shrugged. "Fair enough. I complain about my clients enough for both of us." Adrian actually laughed, soft enough that Noah almost questioned whether he had imagined it. Their routines continued as always. Noah cooked whenever he could stretch his grocery budget creatively. Adrian quietly replaced ingredients before they completely ran out. Noah fixed software problems on Adrian's laptop without charging him. Adrian assembled the furniture Noah ordered online because, according to him, instruction manuals were simply friendly suggestions. They never discussed money. They never discussed family. Yet every now and then another strange clue surfaced. One afternoon, a phone call interrupted lunch. Adrian glanced at the screen, immediately stood, and stepped onto the balcony. Noah could not hear the entire conversation, only scattered phrases carried inside by the wind. "No. Postpone the meeting until Friday. Tell the board I will review everything personally." "Absolutely not. The final decision stays with me." When Adrian returned a few minutes later, he found Noah grinning over his sandwich. "Board meeting?" Noah teased. Adrian calmly picked up his coffee. "Something like that." Noah laughed again, convinced his roommate had to be exaggerating his ordinary office job for fun. He had no idea that every unanswered question was quietly leading him toward a world he had never imagined entering. The next evening arrived with unexpected silence. Noah had just finished cleaning up after dinner when Adrian walked into the living room carrying the same black envelope from the kitchen. He looked different somehow. Not because of the perfectly fitted navy sweater or the calm expression he always wore, but because there was an unmistakable weight behind his eyes. "Do you have a minute?" Adrian asked quietly. Noah muted the television. "Sure. You are making me nervous." Adrian sat across from him, placing the envelope on the coffee table between them. For several long seconds, he simply looked at it, as though deciding how much of his life he was finally willing to reveal. "I have not been completely honest with you." Noah smiled. "You mean your mystery job?" Adrian gave a small nod. "Yes." Noah leaned back, expecting to hear that his roommate was secretly a lawyer or perhaps a financial executive. Adrian calmly opened the envelope and slid the invitation toward him. Noah picked it up, reading the elegant silver lettering once more. Sterling Grand Hotel's Annual Legacy Gala. Beneath the title was another line he had somehow missed before. Hosted by the Sterling family. Noah frowned. "Your family owns the hotel?" Adrian looked directly into his eyes. "My family owns the entire company." Noah blinked. "Wait." Adrian remained silent. Noah laughed once, assuming it was another joke. No. Seriously. I am serious. The room suddenly felt much quieter. Noah stared at his roommate as dozens of tiny details from the past 6 months crashed together inside his head. The expensive watch, the tailored suits, the luxury cars, the mysterious board meetings, the business trips, the phone calls. Every strange clue that he had casually ignored now fit together perfectly. You are telling me, Noah slowly said, that you are one of the owners of Sterling Grand Hotels? Adrian gently shook his head. Not one of the owners. He paused before adding the words that completely changed everything. I am the heir. Noah forgot to breathe for a moment. Sterling Grand Hotels was not just another company. It was one of the largest luxury hotel groups in the country, with properties in New York, Chicago, Miami, Seattle, and Las Vegas. He had seen the commercials. He had designed advertisements for local businesses that dreamed of booking conferences inside Sterling Hotels one day. You are kidding. Adrian calmly reached into his wallet and placed a business card on the table. Adrian Sterling, Executive Vice President, Sterling Grand Hospitality Group. Noah stared at it in complete disbelief. You have been living with me this whole time? Yes. Eating frozen pizza? Yes. Watching terrible reality television? Adrian's lips curved slightly. Unfortunately, yes. Noah rubbed both hands across his face. I do not even know what to say. Adrian's expression became serious again. Then let me explain why I finally told you. He folded his hands together. 3 nights from now, my family is hosting the annual Legacy Gala. Every major investor, executive, and member of my extended family will be there. Noah nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. Adrian continued. For the past year, my family has been pressuring me to begin a public relationship with someone they believe would strengthen our reputation. Noah frowned. Meaning, someone wealthy, someone influential, someone they approve of. Noah immediately understood where the conversation was heading, and his stomach tightened. Adrian looked at him with calm sincerity that somehow made the impossible request sound almost reasonable. I do not intend to let them choose my personal life. Noah remained silent. Adrian took one careful breath before speaking again. I need someone they cannot control. Another pause filled the apartment. Then Adrian quietly said the sentence that would change both of their lives. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend. Noah stared at Adrian for nearly a full minute before finally laughing in disbelief. You do realize you could ask almost anyone in Chicago to do this? Adrian calmly nodded. I could. Movie stars. Influencers. Models. Yes. Noah crossed his arms. Instead, you picked the guy who still owns a coffee mug with a cracked handle. A faint smile appeared on Adrian's face. That is exactly why I picked you. Noah shook his head. I have absolutely no idea how to pretend to be the boyfriend of one of the richest men in the country. Adrian stood and picked up his jacket from the chair. Then we will practice. The following afternoon, their apartment transformed into an unlikely rehearsal studio. Adrian placed 2 dining chairs in the middle of the living room. Scenario 1, he said. Someone asks how we met. Noah immediately answered, Craigslist. Adrian blinked. Technically correct. Noah grinned. Truth is easier to remember. Adrian considered it for a moment before nodding. Fair point. Keep that answer. They continued through dozens of imaginary conversations. Favorite restaurants. Weekend hobbies. Vacation memories. Every answer needed to sound natural instead of rehearsed. Whenever Noah tried inventing elaborate romantic stories, Adrian quietly interrupted him. Too complicated. Really, simple stories sound true because they usually are. Noah sighed dramatically. You are ruining my career as an award-winning actor. Adrian replied without looking up from his notes. You never had one. Noah laughed so hard he nearly dropped his notebook. It was the easiest conversation they had shared since becoming roommates. Later that evening, Adrian suggested they practice taking photographs together. My family will expect pictures, he explained. Noah raised an eyebrow. Are there rules for fake dating photography too? Only one. Adrian stepped closer. Do not look like strangers. Noah suddenly realized how little personal space remained between them. Adrian adjusted Noah's jacket collar with calm concentration before stepping back. There. Noah cleared his throat. You know, normal roommates do not usually stand this close. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Exactly. Noah pulled out his phone. Fine. Selfie time. They took dozens of pictures in the apartment. Some looked awkward. Others looked surprisingly believable. In one photograph, Noah laughed after accidentally blinking, while Adrian happened to be looking directly at him instead of the camera. When Noah reviewed the picture, he paused. This one. Adrian leaned over to see the screen. What about it? It actually looks real. Adrian studied the image quietly before answering. Because neither of us was trying. Neither spoke for several seconds after that. The next rehearsal involved walking into imaginary rooms together. Adrian explained that confidence mattered more than perfection. If we hesitate before entering the ballroom, people will notice. Noah exaggerated an elegant runway walk across the living room. Like this. Adrian could not suppress a quiet laugh. Slightly less theatrical. Noah placed one hand over his heart. You wound me. They practiced introductions, polite conversations, and even a formal dinner toast using glasses filled with sparkling water. Every mistake turned into another reason to laugh. Every rehearsal made the impossible situation feel a little less impossible. On the final evening before the gala, Adrian handed Noah a neatly wrapped garment bag. Noah carefully unzipped it and froze. Inside hung the most beautiful navy tuxedo he had ever seen. Adrian, he said quietly, this has to cost more than my car. Adrian calmly straightened the hanger. It is only borrowed. Noah looked at him suspiciously. Borrowed from where? Adrian answered with perfect seriousness. My closet. Noah laughed again, but this time Adrian joined him immediately. For just a moment, neither billionaire heir nor struggling designer existed. They were simply two roommates standing in a small apartment, trying to convince the world they belonged together, never realizing that pretending was slowly becoming the easiest part of the entire plan. The limousine rolled beneath the illuminated entrance canopy just as the sun disappeared behind the Chicago skyline, and Noah immediately understood that everything he had imagined about luxury had been far too small. The Sterling Grand Hotel rose above Michigan Avenue like a palace of glass and gold, every window glowing with warm light, while a line of perfectly dressed guests stepped onto an enormous crimson carpet. Valets greeted each arriving vehicle by name before the engines were even switched off. Cameras flashed politely rather than aggressively, and musicians filled the lobby with elegant jazz that seemed to drift through the marble columns themselves. Noah quietly exhaled. I suddenly miss our apartment. Adrian smiled without looking away from the entrance. That makes two of us. A valet opened the door. The moment Adrian stepped outside, the atmosphere changed almost instantly. Employees standing several yards away straightened their posture. Managers offered respectful greetings. One elderly gentleman in a tailored tuxedo nodded with unmistakable admiration. Good evening, Mr. Sterling. Noah leaned closer and whispered, Everybody knows you. Adrian answered under his breath. That is exactly the problem. Before Noah could respond, Adrian gently offered his arm. Noah hesitated for half a second before remembering the rehearsal. Right. Boyfriends. He accepted naturally, and together they entered the grand lobby. Noah had designed advertisements for luxury hotels before, but standing inside, one felt completely different. Crystal chandeliers stretched across ceilings nearly 40 feet high. Fresh orchids decorated every corner. A pianist performed beside an indoor fountain, while waiters carried silver trays with tiny desserts that looked too beautiful to eat. Noah instinctively reached toward one, then quickly stopped. Can I? He whispered. Adrian nodded. Please do. Noah carefully picked up a bite-sized chocolate pastry. If I accidentally drop this on somebody important, promise you will pretend not to know me. Adrian looked perfectly serious. That would be difficult since I am supposedly dating you. Noah laughed quietly. Good point. They continued walking through the ballroom, where conversations floated effortlessly between billion-dollar acquisitions, international resorts, charity foundations, and private vineyards. Noah recognized almost none of the names being mentioned. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely out of place. A woman wearing an emerald gown approached with a graceful smile. Adrian, she said warmly before turning toward Noah. And who is this? Adrian answered without hesitation. This is Noah Bennett. The woman studied him for a pleasant moment before extending her hand. Margaret Sterling, your boyfriend has been impossible to convince to bring anyone to these events. Noah shook her hand carefully. It is nice to meet you. As soon as she walked away, Noah quietly asked, Cousin, my aunt. Noah blinked. Your aunt dresses like a queen. Adrian nodded once. She would appreciate hearing that. They barely took another 10 steps before another introduction followed. Then another. Then another. Cousins. Uncles. Family friends. Board members. Investors. Noah smiled so often that his cheeks began to ache. At one point, an older gentleman asked which boarding school Noah had attended. Noah honestly answered, Lincoln Public High School. The gentleman politely nodded before excusing himself with remarkable speed. Noah leaned toward Adrian. Was that the wrong answer? Adrian struggled to hide a smile. For this room, slightly. A few minutes later, Noah accidentally picked up what he thought was sparkling water, only to discover after one careful sip that it was an imported mineral water with herbs he could not identify. He quietly whispered, Water is becoming complicated. Adrian almost laughed aloud. You are doing better than you think. Noah looked across the enormous ballroom filled with elegant gowns, tailored tuxedos, priceless jewelry, and conversations about worlds he had never experienced. He felt like an ordinary man who had somehow wandered onto the wrong movie set. Yet every time uncertainty crept into his thoughts, Adrian remained beside him without rushing ahead or leaving him behind. That simple, steady presence became the one familiar thing in an ocean of unimaginable wealth. And for the first time since entering the hotel, Noah began to believe he might actually survive the evening. As the evening settled into an effortless rhythm of speeches, conversations, and polished smiles, Adrian was called away by a senior executive who needed his signature before the board presentation. I will only be a few minutes, he quietly told Noah. Stay here. Margaret will keep you company if you need anything. Noah nodded confidently. I survived public high school. I can survive rich people for 5 minutes. Adrian smiled before disappearing through a pair of ornate wooden doors leading toward the executive conference wing. Noah wandered toward a display showcasing the company's newest luxury resort projects. Large architectural models, digital screens, and framed blueprints surrounded him. It was fascinating, even if he barely understood half of the business terminology. You must be Noah. The unfamiliar voice behind him was calm, measured, and impossible to ignore. Noah turned to find a man in his early 30s standing with remarkable composure. His tailored black tuxedo fit perfectly, his silver tie clip reflected the ballroom lights, and his expression revealed almost nothing. He was not intimidating because he raised his voice. He was intimidating because he never needed to. I am Landon Sterling, the man said politely, extending his hand. Adrian's cousin. Noah accepted the handshake. Nice to meet you. Landon's eyes studied him with quiet curiosity rather than open judgment. I have heard surprisingly little about you. Noah laughed nervously. That is probably because I only found out 3 days ago that my roommate belonged to this family. Interesting, Landon replied, almost as if filing the information away. Most people would have searched his name online months ago. Noah shrugged. He paid rent on time and washed his own dishes. That was enough for me. For the first time, the faintest hint of amusement appeared in Landon's expression. Perhaps that is why Adrian trusts you. Before Noah could answer, a hotel employee hurried over carrying 2 identical leather document folders. Excuse me, Mr. Sterling, the young assistant said. The legal department requested these be delivered to the executive conference room immediately. Landon accepted both folders without hesitation. Thank you. The employee hurried away. Landon glanced briefly at the gold-embossed labels before looking toward the hallway where Adrian had disappeared. One moment, he murmured, mostly to himself. Noah watched as Landon opened both folders with efficient precision. He quickly scanned the first pages, frowned almost imperceptibly, then compared several signature tabs. That is odd, he quietly said. Noah looked over curiously. Everything okay? Perhaps, Landon answered. He carefully removed several documents from one folder and placed them into the other, then reversed. Another stack with deliberate accuracy. Every movement was calm, organized, almost mechanical. Noah blinked. Did somebody mix those up? Landon closed both folders. That is exactly what I am trying to determine. He examined the labels one final time before his expression grew slightly colder. Someone switched the contracts. Noah frowned. By accident. Landon looked toward the crowded ballroom where hundreds of guests continued enjoying the gala completely unaware that anything unusual had happened. Accidents happen, he said quietly. Patterns do not. He immediately pressed a discreet button on his phone. Please locate Mr. Adrian Sterling and ask him to meet me in conference room A immediately. Tell no one else. He ended the call and turned back to Noah with the same calm professionalism. Enjoy your evening. There is no reason for the guests to be concerned. Then, carrying both document folders, Landon disappeared into the hallway without another word. Noah remained standing beside the architectural display, watching him leave. He could not explain why, but something about Landon's quiet certainty unsettled him far more than if the man had reacted with panic. Whatever had just happened was invisible to everyone else in the ballroom. Yet Noah had the unmistakable feeling that the evening had quietly shifted in a direction none of them had expected. The ballroom lights dimmed as the chairman stepped onto the stage to begin the final presentation of the evening. Conversations gradually faded into respectful silence while enormous screens descended behind the podium. Adrian returned from the executive wing looking calmer than Noah expected, but there was a new firmness in his expression that had not been there before. Landon followed several steps behind, carrying the corrected document folders. As the chairman welcomed investors and family members, he smiled toward Adrian. Before we conclude tonight, there is one final matter regarding the future leadership of Sterling Grand Hospitality Group. A member of the legal team approached the stage holding another leather folder. Mr. Adrian Sterling, if you would please join us. Adrian gave Noah a reassuring glance before walking toward the podium. Noah suddenly realized every guest in the ballroom was watching. The attorney opened the folder and began speaking about succession planning, strategic partnerships, and family expectations. Then came a sentence that made Noah's heart sink. As previously discussed, this agreement outlines the public engagement strategy recommended by the board to strengthen future corporate alliances. Noah slowly looked at Adrian. So that was it. This had never just been about one gala. It had been about deciding Adrian's future. The attorney extended the document and a pen. Whenever you are ready. The ballroom became perfectly silent. Adrian accepted the folder, opened it, and calmly read the first page. He looked toward the board members seated nearby, then toward several older relatives whose expressions revealed quiet expectation. Finally, his eyes found Noah standing near the back of the room. Noah offered the smallest encouraging smile he could manage, silently telling Adrian to do whatever he believed was right. Adrian closed the folder. For most of my life, he began, his voice steady enough to reach every corner of the ballroom without a microphone. I believed responsibility meant saying yes to every expectation placed before me. No one interrupted. I believed success required sacrificing personal happiness whenever the two came into conflict. He looked down at the document one last time. I no longer believe that. With one deliberate motion, Adrian removed the agreement from the folder. The sound of paper tearing echoed through the silent ballroom. He calmly divided the contract into several pieces before placing them on the podium. A wave of stunned whispers spread through the audience. Nobody moved. Nobody seemed to breathe. Adrian stepped away from the podium and walked directly toward Noah. Every pair of eyes followed him. When he stopped only a few feet away, his voice became quieter, yet somehow even more powerful. 3 days ago, I asked you to help me tell a lie. Noah felt his pulse racing. Adrian continued without looking away. I believed pretending would solve a problem. Instead, these past few days showed me something I had ignored for much longer. A gentle smile appeared across his face. You never cared about my last name. You never cared about my position. Before anyone in this room saw an heir, you simply saw Adrian. Noah's eyes widened. Adrian took one careful breath. Somewhere between sharing frozen pizza, laughing through awkward rehearsals, and coming home to the only place that ever felt normal, I stopped pretending. The ballroom remained completely silent. Noah, I asked you to act like my boyfriend. His smile grew warmer. I do not want to act anymore. Noah could not find words. Adrian's eyes reflected complete sincerity as he spoke the sentence that changed everything. I truly care about you, and if you are willing, I would like the chance to build something real together, without scripts, without expectations, and without pretending. For a heartbeat that seemed to last forever, the ballroom waited. Then Noah smiled the same honest smile that had first made an impossibly wealthy heir feel ordinary, took a slow step forward, and quietly answered, I was hoping you would say that. For several long seconds, the ballroom remained completely still. Noah felt every heartbeat echo louder than the applause that had not yet come. Adrian was still standing in front of him, waiting for an answer, when the soft tap of a wooden cane broke the silence. Every conversation stopped immediately. Guests instinctively stepped aside as an elderly gentleman walked slowly toward the center of the ballroom. His silver hair, perfectly tailored tuxedo, and quiet confidence required no introduction. This was William Sterling, the founder of Sterling Grand Hospitality Group and the man whose decisions had shaped the company for more than 5 decades. Noah had never met him before, but somehow knew exactly who he was. William looked first at the torn pieces of the agreement scattered across the podium. Then he looked at Adrian. No anger appeared on his face. No disappointment. Only thoughtful silence. Finally, he smiled. It was small, almost impossible to notice, but genuine. "Adrian," he said, his calm voice carrying naturally across the ballroom. "Come. Here." Adrian walked forward without hesitation. William studied his grandson for another moment before asking a simple question. "Why did you tear the agreement?" Adrian answered honestly. "Because I realized I was protecting the company by betraying myself, and eventually that would hurt both." William slowly nodded. "And this young man?" Adrian turned briefly toward Noah before answering. "He reminds me every day that people matter more than appearances. He treats employees, waiters, neighbors, and strangers exactly the same way he treats me. Before he knew anything about this family, he showed me what genuine respect looked like." William's smile widened slightly. "Good." The single word confused almost everyone in the room. Several board members exchanged uncertain glances. One executive quietly lowered his notes. William reached into the inside pocket of his tuxedo and removed a sealed envelope bearing the Sterling family crest. He handed it directly to Adrian. "I plan to announce this after the board meeting tomorrow morning," he said. "I see no reason to wait." Adrian opened the envelope carefully. His eyes widened for the first time that evening. William looked toward the audience. Effective immediately, Adrian Sterling will become the next chief executive officer of Sterling Grand Hospitality Group. A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. Even Landon, standing quietly near the stage, looked genuinely surprised before offering Adrian a respectful nod. William raised one hand, asking everyone to remain silent. Leadership is not measured by perfect obedience. It is measured by knowing when principles matter more than convenience. Tonight my grandson demonstrated exactly that. Applause slowly began near the front of the room before spreading through the ballroom until nearly every guest was standing. Noah remained frozen, unable to believe what he was witnessing. William then turned toward Noah with kind eyes. "Young man." Noah stepped forward nervously. "Yes, sir. Adrian once told me that you paid for college by taking freelance jobs because scholarships were never easy to find." Noah blinked in surprise. "Yes, sir." William smiled warmly. "That story inspired a conversation we had several months ago." He looked toward the audience once again. "Beginning this year, Sterling Grand Hospitality Group will establish the Bennett Creative Scholarship, providing annual tuition assistance to students pursuing design, digital arts, and creative communication who demonstrate talent, perseverance, and financial need." This time the applause came instantly. Noah covered his mouth, completely speechless. He had spent years wondering how many talented students quietly gave up because they could not afford the opportunity to continue learning. Now, because of one unexpected journey that had begun in a shared apartment, countless strangers would receive the chance he had once dreamed of himself. Adrian reached for Noah's hand without hesitation, and for the first time that evening, Noah realized the greatest reward had never been standing inside the most luxurious ballroom in Chicago. It was discovering that sincerity could quietly transform even the most powerful family into something far greater than wealth alone. 3 months later, the apartment looked almost exactly the same as it always had. The bookshelf Noah assembled crooked on their second weekend together still leaned slightly to the left. The tiny scratch on the dining table from the time he had dropped a screwdriver was still there. The coffee maker still made an odd clicking sound every morning before finally deciding to work. Outside, Chicago was just beginning to wake as pale sunlight slipped through the familiar living room window. Inside the kitchen, Noah stood barefoot in an old college sweatshirt, carefully flipping pancakes while pretending not to notice Adrian quietly watching him from the doorway. "You are smiling," Adrian observed. Noah did not look up. I am concentrating. On pancakes. Very serious pancakes. Adrian walked over and poured 2 cups of coffee exactly the way Noah liked it, with a little cream and 1 spoonful of sugar. I believe one of them is burning. Noah quickly turned around. Oh no. He rescued the pancake just in time, holding it up proudly despite the slightly darker edge. Perfect. Adrian examined it thoughtfully. It has character. Noah laughed. That is a very polite way of saying I almost ruined breakfast. Some things had changed over the past 3 months. Adrian now spent long days leading meetings as the company's chief executive officer, but he still insisted on taking the train whenever his schedule allowed because, as he often said, it reminded him that businesses existed to serve people, not impress them. Noah continued running his freelance design studio, although he had recently begun mentoring the first students selected for the Bennett Creative Scholarship. Watching young artists receive opportunities they once believed impossible became one of the happiest parts of every week. Yet despite everything that had happened, neither of them had wanted to leave the apartment where their story had quietly begun. Friends questioned the decision constantly. Colleagues suggested luxury condominiums overlooking Lake Michigan. Family members offered larger homes. Adrian politely thanked every person for the advice before returning each evening to apartment 4B, where shoes gathered by the front door, sketchbooks covered the coffee table, and somebody usually forgot to water the small plant beside the window until the last possible moment. Noah placed 2 pancakes onto Adrian's plate before sitting across from him. Do you ever miss pretending? Adrian looked genuinely confused. Pretending? Noah smiled. Back when we were practicing answers, rehearsing smiles, and worrying about saying the wrong thing. Adrian thought about it for a moment before quietly shaking his head. No. Why not? Adrian reached across the table and gently squeezed Noah's hand. Because now every answer is the truth. Noah looked around the apartment that had once seemed ordinary. The mismatched chairs, the old refrigerator covered with magnets from neighborhood coffee shops, the stack of unfinished design sketches waiting beside his laptop, and the quiet comfort of another peaceful morning somehow felt more valuable than any grand ballroom ever could. Happiness, he realized, had never arrived with expensive invitations or important titles. It had arrived one ordinary breakfast at a time. After they finished eating, Noah carried the empty plates toward the sink, while Adrian gathered the ingredients left on the counter. Neither asked the other for help because they had long ago learned the rhythm of sharing a life together. The radio softly played an old song neither of them knew very well. Noah hummed along anyway. Adrian laughed at every wrong lyric without correcting him. Outside, the city grew louder as another busy day began. Inside their small apartment, breakfast dishes clinked gently, fresh coffee filled the room with warmth, and sunlight settled across the kitchen floor exactly as it had months before. The storm that had brought them together was over, and what remained was not a fairy tale or a performance. It was simply 2 people choosing the same home, the same table, and each other, one quiet morning after another.